What's up everybody, Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2019 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon with the 2-liter turbo engine. Huge thanks to Jeep for providing me with this very bright orange pumpkin metallic Rubicon to review for you guys today. So about the Wrangler, well, I already did a 2-door Wrangler review about 1.5 years ago whenever these JLs first launched, and so it was a very exciting, very monumental thing to have an all-new Jeep. And so the 2-door version, was very lively with its handling because of its shorter wheelbase. It's still a really fun and very true to the Jeep character. And so now we have the Unlimited version. This is my first time driving the JL Unlimited. Obviously you have the longer wheelbase, you have the additional space of the 4 doors, and Rubicon trim here, it looks really aggressive too. I love the darker accents you have and the sportier looks, of course. Right up front there, this one has the optional LED headlamps, which look really good there. And also you have that more aggressive front bumper that is actually able to have a winch installed there in the middle of it on these Rubicon bumpers specifically, and looks great. I also love the hood on the Rubicons, which is more aggressive. You have the larger all-terrain tires, which look great as well. A little bit of a higher lift than what you get on some of the lower Wranglers. And otherwise, going out back, you have some new tail lamps there that are LED on this one as well. But I'm really excited to test drive this one with the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder because it has a mild hybrid assist system, which helps with stopping and starting and things like that. And also having this turbo engine, I think, is really going to help give the Wrangler some much needed low-end grunt that you don't get with the V6. And so we'll find out more as we hit the road. But from the outside here, the Wrangler just still looks great and just screams fun. Right, so the interior of the Wrangler. So same as the 2-door one for the most part, although this one has a little more options to it. And so that's something with the Rubicons here. Like, for example, this center cluster gets a little more busy with more buttons. But anyway, still a really cool interior. They nicely modernized it here with these new Jeeps. And so anyway, first thing, you have these leather seats here, and they're nice and comfortable, have an appropriate amount of bolstering, I guess would be the word, for a vehicle of this type, but the bolstering is actually decent. It does hold you in corners and things like that, and there are comfortable seats as well that are heated, and you also get a heated steering wheel. That's part of like a climate pack, a cold weather package. And so overall, pretty good seats. Next is the steering wheel here, which I actually really enjoy in these new Wranglers. So has a really nice 9-3 grip, nice tiny little 10-2 notches. You just have a few buttons here on them on the front, and then these little rockers on the back, which you always get with Jeeps here, to allow you to change the volume and the radio stations and things like that. But the buttons here on the front are great. This one has the optional adaptive cruise control, and so you'll see that here on the right. On the left, just navigates your little gauge cluster menu there. And so overall, just a nice, attractive, and good feeling wheel. Next to the gauges here in the Wrangler, which are also great here for these new Wranglers. I first just love how you have all the historic Jeep imagery there on that center screen. It's very cool, even when you start it right up. And then you have just the basic analog gauges, which are great. And then you have, like I said, that nice large digital portion though, which is actually packed full of information. So there's a couple cool little toys that are Wrangler specific. Otherwise, it's just the same great menus you get in other FCA vehicles. So you have lots of vehicle info. You have a digital speedometer. You have your trip information. You can have media displayed there, all those types of things. And you also even have like an off-road mode, so it'll show you the angle that the Jeep is sitting at currently, which is a cool little feature. And so a really nice high-resolution display, and just gives you everything you want. So fantastic job there. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, this one has the 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen with navigation. Now there's a smaller screen you can get that also has Apple CarPlay, and then in base Wranglers you have a non-Apple CarPlay little screen that isn't touchscreen anymore. And so anyway, this is the nicest screen. It's great. I mean, FCA has been using these Uconnect infotainment systems for several years now, and they're fantastic. I don't want them to change a single thing about it, because it is just great. It's wonderfully simple, easy to use, very responsive and quick. Very easy to find everything. You can customize it, so you can drag down whatever menu options you want to have in that lower menu bar, just like on a smartphone. Very easy to use. Like I said, has the smartphone connectivity, which is great. Android Auto is included as well, so that's awesome. And so overall, a great head unit. Coming down, you have a clutter of buttons. It is a little busy, but not too bad once you kind of get used to it. I do really appreciate that they have a volume and a tune knob here, as well as a fan speed knob. Those are great. And then otherwise, just a few buttons here for climate, a couple other buttons here for hill descent control, things like that. And then coming down, you have your window switches, which have to be in the middle here, because of course you can take the doors off here on the Wrangler still. So that kind of clutters this up a little bit, but a necessary thing. You also have a power outlet and one USB jack and one USB-C jack, which is cool to have that, and also an auxiliary jack. Coming beneath there, you'll see on the Rubicons here, you can see the sway bar disconnect and the differential lockers, both front and rear on here. And then as an optional upgrade, you also have these auxiliary switches, but those do not come standard on the Rubicon. And then beneath there, you'll see just this little slot that isn't really a bin, but it is just kind of a space. You could slide something in there if you wanted, but other actual usable spaces you'll see are these two cup holders, which are nicely rubberized and really hold your drinks in well, and also a little slot there for your phone, although it is kind of shallow, but nice to have that. You have this center armrest, which is pretty nice and softly padded actually, and then you open that up and it's 2 levels. First level is pretty shallow, but great for having your phone or something in there. This is also where Jeep includes your toolkit for removing the roof. And then there's a lower bin, which is just massive and also has a second USB jack in there, and I mean just a huge amount of space. So I mean, those things alone make the storage space in the Wrangler fantastic and right on par with even most normal, you know, family mid-sized SUVs. So really a great amount of space, and so that makes up for the fact that, you know, you ever have other small things like under the e-brake here, there's this tiny thing, not sure what you'd use that for other than maybe the key. And then you have a net here in the door, so you don't have any kind of actual pocket in the doors, but having the net means you could still put a bottle or something in there, and I think that's a good solution to keep the doors nice and simple and light. And so overall, I think they did a really great job on storage space here in the Wranglers. Now the big news here for the Unlimited version, of course, is the back seat, and I'm happy to report that that is very usable too. A little more spacious than the old Unlimited, I think. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I easily have about 3, maybe 4 inches of legroom to spare, and so plenty of legroom there. And of course you have an abundance of headroom, especially with this soft top version, because you have the roll bars there, but then you have the roof above that, that's, you know, probably another 6 inches higher. So also, speaking of this roof while we're up here, so this one has the soft top Sunrider option, so this means you can flip up this front part and just have like a massive moonroof if you want, or you can you know, roll the whole roof off and take off the back and everything and have the full convertible effect if you would like. There's also just a normal hard top, and then there's also a power sliding roof that's a hard top on the sides but does have the soft top on the top, and will actually slide all the way back to that cargo area. And so for those of you that don't want to feel like you're putting together IKEA furniture every time you're taking your roof on or off with the softer hard tops, that one is power. It's about a $4,000 option, but again, if you want to simplify your experience, you can just hit it with a touch of a button and have all that great open air feeling without all the work that usually goes into it on the Wranglers here. And so that's great that they have that new option now as well. Other things though in that back seats, you'll see dedicated air vents, which is great, and of course your window switches are there in the center as well. And then you also have 2 USB jacks, 2 USB-C jacks in there as well. So great to have, you know, you can have everyone have all their stuff nice and charged up. So that's great. And then you have other little bins there beneath that. Nothing super usable there, but you know, nice to have those. If you're wondering where the cup holders are, there aren't any in the doors. You just have more nets in the doors there, but you do have this center armrest that folds down, and very cleverly you have the back of that center headrest is where you'll find your cup holders. And again, nice deep rubberized cup holders, so they do a great job there, and a nice little padded armrest too. And so overall, you know, it's not the most plush back seat as far as, you know, you can see the doors exposed and stuff like that, but I mean, you have a lot of amenities back there actually, and so overall a really nice back seat and very spacious as well. Trunk space here in the Wrangler Unlimited is also pretty good, so it's actually a good amount of space. I would say it's on par with a lot of, you know, these small to mid-sized SUV class, and so, you know, it's a nice long and very wide, obviously very square space there, so very, very usable. And of course you have tons and tons of height since it's so boxy, so you can stack things way better than you can in most SUVs, which have a little bit of a slope to the rear there. Now the only thing I will say with the soft top is you can't open that upper part, so you kind of got to bend over to kind of get into there, which isn't great unless you have, of course, the soft top off. Now, with the hard top, you can get a little clamshell thing you can open up, and that allows you to get in there a lot easier, but that is one caveat here of the soft top. But overall, a really great amount of space, and you also have all those little tie downs and another power outlet back there as well. And so overall, a really good amount of cargo space here on the Unlimited. All right, so start up and go for a drive. I really love the Jeep Wrangler key. It's kind of like a jerry can of sorts here with this shape, and then just a few buttons there on the back of it. And so, you know, know, it's a rugged key like you would want for a Jeep. It also is a switchblade key. This one has push button start, but if you needed to get in for some reason as a backup, it's nice to still have the key. But of course, it's keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2019 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited with the 2-liter turbo engine. So, first thing you notice, well, obviously visibility is excellent here in the Wranglers. It always is, but especially, you know, these new ones, they did a really good job. You know, you still have a very short dashboard, so a very good view over the hood there. Obviously, it's a long hood, but very easy to see everything since you're sitting up so high. Nice square windows. The B-pillar is pretty thin, so no worries there. View out of the back is a little bit obstructed, of course, with that tire there, and of course having the headrests up, but you can lower those headrests if you're not using them to give you a better view out of the back. But it's very easy to drive. You can have the backup camera standard and all that type of stuff, and so very easy from that regard. And it's also just, it's one of the few vehicles these days that's fun to drive even when you're going slow, because it has the very low handling limits, and you can drive over just about anything you like that's not too tall. And so, you know, all those things, it gives it a very playful character. Now it is, you know, a little bit more prone to wander, I guess, than what you would get with normal vehicles. You know, for example, the steering is very loose, and so, you know, it's one of those Jeep trademark things that it would be nice if it was a little bit sharper, but I kind of understand that it's better for off-roading and things like that. And so clearly this vehicle is not about on-road handling. If you do care about that, basically every single other mid-sized normal crossover and SUV is going to handle better than a Wrangler, but that's okay because the Wrangler just destroys them all as far as off-road capability goes. But starting off from a stop here, that's one of the big deals with this new powertrain here. So this has that 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder with the eTorque hybrid assist. It's a mild hybrid system, so it's not going to be like a Prius and allow you to coast with the power off or have anything like that go on. It basically just helps you with its extended stop start. And so it has this little electric motor that actually has 22 horsepower and 71 pound-feet of torque at max output for starting. So the first half second when you're leaving a light while the engine's coming back on and the turbo's spooling back up, that little electric motor will give you a little bit of a help with that first turn of the wheel to get you up and moving. And so it's really helpful with the stop-start system to have that, so that it really does a good job of making it seem as unobtrusive as possible while still saving you the gas at a light and stuff. And if you're curious to find out more about the eTorque system and how it works, I actually did a feature on it in the Ram, and it's pretty much the same as it is here in this application, I think. And so I had one of their engineers talk me through everything about, you know, the eTorque system, so I'll link that video above if you want more info on that. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. It pulls really well, but it does short shift. It doesn't even go up to its 6,000 RPM redline. So it's a very torquey engine, which is what I feel like the Wrangler has always needed. So this engine, 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, very similar to the one in the Alfa Romeo Giulia and Stelvio, actually. It does 270 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque in this application. So that is about 15 less horsepower than what you get with the V6, but it is 35 more pound-feet of torque, and that torque comes on over 1,000 RPM sooner than it does in the V6. So it gives you much more usable power. You don't have to feel like the engine's straining to get you up and moving like you sometimes felt with the V6. And so it gives it actually better performance than what you get with the V6 as well. So 0 to 60 is about 6.5 seconds, which is about 0.3 seconds faster than what you would get with a V6 Wrangler. And so it's a pretty strong performance, especially considering these aren't light vehicles. This Rubicon Unlimited here with the automatic and everything is over 4,400 pounds still. So obviously a lot of that is the lockers and stuff for the four-wheel drive system and everything. There's a lot of weight here in these Jeeps, but you know, it doesn't feel too heavy. It actually feels fairly light on its feet, you know, for what it is. And you know, it's a really fun runaround, but I just love this turbo engine. It is just so punchy down low, and now it is a little bit of an upcharge, so you have to get the automatic transmission with it, and we are running that, you know, the 8-speed automatic. And considering the taller gearing you get with the manual in the Wrangler, I personally, even though every car I've ever bought is a manual, I would recommend this automatic automatic. I think it makes the most sense for the Wrangler and helps to better utilize the engines that the Wrangler has, both the V6 and this 4-cylinder. But I personally, I really like this 8-speed. It's great. So that's $2,000, and then the eTorque system and the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder is another $1,000 on top of that. So I just got a Jeep Wave from another Jeep. That's one of the fun things driving these around is, you know, it's such a friendly community in the Jeep community, and that's really, really great. So yeah, I think that powertrain is totally worth it, but we're coming up to a corner here, and let's see how the Wrangler handles it. So it's not bad. Now, very low limit, so, you know, you definitely have to slow down way more than you do in any other vehicle, and you have to, you know, be a little more careful because these things, I think, are a little more prone to rolling than what you get with most other vehicles on the road there. And so I think that's what makes the Wrangler so appealing to so many people, is that it's just such a fun daily driver, because, you know, it just makes every little trip an adventure, and, you know, you don't have to be going fast. You can still be well within the legal limits and still have a smile on your face driving this thing and having it not be a bore, which is great. So anyway, handling I'm not going to get too much into because obviously it's not very important with these, but it is, you know, pretty good here. And now you do have solid axles, both front and rear, so like I said, very limited, but, you know, plenty good enough for, you know, daily driving and things like that. Just don't try and, you know, get off of an on-ramp or an off-ramp too fast or anything like that, and you'll be fine. One thing I will say, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but there is a little more gear whine than I remember with the V6 Wrangler that I reviewed, and also the Gladiator. So I'm guessing that's part of the eTorque thing, is it has a little bit of this like gear whine. It almost sounds like an automatic transmission whine in a way, but I think that's part of this eTorque system. It kind of recuperates some of the energy and puts it back into the battery like a normal hybrid whenever you're slowing down and things like that. And so I think that's kind of what I'm hearing, but it is a little noisier. Another thing that's kind of noisy, I don't know if you could even notice when I was doing the interior portion, is you don't have a lot of sound insulation here, and I think most of that is to blame with this soft top. If you had the hard top, you'd be much better insulated. But because of that, you know, you do have a lot of noise, a lot of wind noise, road noise, just environmental noise. So it helps you stay better connected to your environment, I guess, in a way. But it's not the most refined experience. But again, you're in a Wrangler, you probably don't care a whole lot about refinement and stuff like that. So probably a moot point as well, but just something I wanted to mention here. But otherwise, you know, the Wrangler here is really nice to drive. I do also appreciate the Unlimited's better stability over the two-door. The two-door definitely felt a little more darty, I guess is the word, a little less stable, obviously just because it has a much shorter wheelbase than this does. And so I do actually like the way this drives better. Obviously, you know, it's going to be larger and heavier and probably not get as good a fuel economy, but I really am appreciating, you know, that extra length. And I think that most people now, you know, you do have a back seat in the two-door Wrangler, but I think the four-door just fits most people's lives better. And so I think the Unlimited is definitely the way to go if you can, you know, spare the extra change for the jump up to the Unlimited, even if you don't use the back seat every day. I think it just is a nicer driving Wrangler than when you go with the two-door. But yes, that's about all I can glean here from the Wrangler in my time so far, but I'm going to be driving this around a little while longer here, and I'll come back and give you guys my real-world fuel economy over the past few days here, as well as any other thoughts about the pricing and anything else that I noticed during my time of driving it. Alright, so I've been driving the 2019 Jeep Wrangler here with the 2-liter turbo engine for about a week now, and I've put about 105 miles on it here in my time of driving, so not a ton. I had a little bit less time with this than I usually do just because of a trip that I'm going on, but I will say that it is very fun. Now, obviously I'm a sports car fan. I like going around corners fast. I like, you know, better performance and handling, but obviously that's not what the Jeep is about. And so going into this with an open mind, this is a fun vehicle to drive, obviously, because it's the whole, you know, driving a slow car faster is a little more exciting. And, you know, I appreciated that. You know, like the Toyota 4Runner has a similar type of thing, although that's a little more street friendly than this. But obviously, you know, you can get a Wrangler that's more street friendly as well. The Rubicon's more off-road oriented. You can go for a Sahara trim or one of the other trims that have, you know, the more street-based tires, so that you don't have any kind of, you know, extra road noise like you do with these Rubicon tires and things like that. So it all comes down to what you want, and it's great that Jeep offers so many different flavors for the Wrangler here and so many different options. So there's a couple impressions I have here. Mostly it just comes down to highway driving. So I was able to take this on a little bit of a highway drive, not a ton, but over, you know, the dozen or so miles of highway driving, it really is better than the V6 in that regard as well. So I was talking earlier about how, you know, I really love the way this turbo 4-cylinder is really well suited, I think, to the Wrangler and its personality. And so I think on the highway that's just only exaggerated even more, because, you know, with the V6 sometimes really had to work hard. Even with the 8-speed auto, it was doing a lot of gear changes and stuff, because that V6, you know, only makes its best power in the higher RPM. So it's a really rev-happy engine, which is kind of odd for a Jeep. You'd want a really torquey, low-end grunt kind of engine, I think. At least I would assume most people would. This gives you that. You know, on the highway, it's much easier to maintain speed, and to, you know, you don't really need a downshift a lot of times, because it'll just spool up that turbo a little bit, give you the little bit of passing power you need or whatever. Obviously, it will downshift if you need it, and it's a very responsive automatic. But I found myself, you know, this engine just always feels like it's working way less hard than the V6 was. The V6 was really working hard sometimes, even though it's a boatload of power. It just doesn't make that power at low RPM, so it's always got to go to those higher RPMs to get that power that it needs. This, you know, I can climb a hill at 2,000 RPMs, no problems, and that was something that in the V6, you know, you kind of had to be a little bit higher than that usually. So I think that's just, you know, one of the better things here is, you know, this engine is just superior in every way I'm finding. And another way that it's superior is in its fuel economy. So, you know, a normal V6 Wrangler Unlimited, you know, is going to be, usually those do like 18 in this city, and then they're like 20 combined, and I think 22 on the highway, or 23. But this engine really makes a huge leap in its city rating. So instead of getting 18, the 4-cylinder version here gets 22 in the city, 24 on the highway, so only at one bump on the highway there. But then combined you get 22 instead of 20. So you do get a little bit, you know, of a meaningful boost there in the combined rating as well. But mostly it's that city rating. If you're going to be doing lots of stop and go stuff, the stop-start system really saves you a lot of gas, and because you have a little bit of a hybrid assist with the electric motor, it doesn't make it sluggish off the line like a lot of other stop-start systems that are just relying on the engine to get up to speed to give you that power. You know, that extra little electric boost I think really helps. Now, again, this isn't any kind of pronounced hybrid sensation, so you're not going to feel like, wow, I have this electric boost like I'm driving a Tesla for a split second. It's not like that, but I think it just makes the start-stop system a little more seamless, and I appreciate that. I still don't appreciate the extra gear whine that I believe is, you know, I think the eTorque system is what's causing that, where it sounds like it's got a little bit of resistance in the transmission or something, and so you always have this whine. It's more pronounced when you're going down hills or coasting and stuff, so I think it's just recuperating and recharging that battery a little bit there, and so that's what I'm hearing. And I didn't remember hearing that in the Ram whenever I did that eTorque system, so I'm not sure if it's specific to the Wrangler or just a quirk of this specific car or what, but just again something I still want to mention because it is pronounced when you're driving, and you will notice it on a test drive if it does it or not. But for my own observed fuel economy here, over 110 miles of driving now, I got 19.4 mpg, which is a little disappointing considering it wasn't 100% city driving. I did do, I'd say maybe 25 to 30% of my driving was on the highway, and so I mean, considering these are rated at 22 in the city, I would have liked to have seen at least that city number, but for some reason, you know, I only got 19.4. I still think, you know, almost 20 mpg isn't bad, and I mean, I've only burned through about a quarter tank of gas, so I'm sure if I drove more, you know, that would probably continue to go up a little bit more. But I was doing a lot of stop and go driving, and in stop and go driving, you are going to have those numbers, you know, be a little bit lower. But that's a little lower than I still would have liked to see. But I think it's well worth the better fuel economy for the extra $1,000. The only other additional cost is that they recommend premium fuel here in the turbo 4-cylinder version versus the V6. You can run regular unleaded, no problem. But I believe the premium fuel is only recommended if you want the top performance. So I think if you're okay with a little less horsepower, it will run okay on regular, but I personally don't condone running regular gas and turbo engines. It's just not the greatest recipe for performance and also for the reliability of the engine and stuff. So I would put premium in. At the end of the day, I mean, these Jeeps aren't cheap, so if you're spending 40 or 50 grand on a Jeep and you're worried about spending an extra $4 at the pump for premium over regular, then you know, maybe you know, just getting something cheaper would be a better option. But so I really don't think, you know, buying the premium fuel is a big deal and well worth it for the better performance, because this thing is peppy too. That is one last thing I want to mention here about this engine, is that it really is strong performance, and it accelerates way faster than honestly you would probably expect a Jeep to, and especially with this turbo engine. Once it gets spooling with that turbo and really starts pulling hard, I mean, it flies. You know, I was merging onto the highway and I actually had to stop, and being able to do basically like a stopping, you know, to starting 0 to 60 run, it is impressive for a Jeep, and I was actually kind of surprised at just how strong the straight line performance is. But yeah, the last thing, you know, speaking of the pricing here, this one as tested is just over $56,000, but this is loaded up with tons of options that I personally would do without. You know, a few of the things, obviously, I think I'd rather go for a Sahara for the more street-based performance versus the Rubicon, because I don't go off-roading. If you're interested in seeing off-road footage, I did do a good bit of off-roading in the Jeep Gladiator on that launch, and that was very sweet, so you can go watch that video. Obviously, all these Jeeps are so capable off-road, and if there's something that it can't do from the factory, then there's plenty of aftermarket or Mopar accessories to get you to where you want to be. I mean, these things could literally do anything almost with the right equipment on them. So, you know, that's you know, but since I don't do off-roading and stuff, to me, for most people that I see driving these things around, they're not muddy. They're just driving them to work and back. And if you must have a Wrangler, I think still, you know, for most people, they'd be better off getting something more street-oriented from Jeep, like a Renegade or a you know, Compass or Cherokee, even something like that. But if you really love the Wrangler, you know, feel and driving experience, then, you know, you can get a more affordable one. The Wranglers start, you know, I think in the high 20s, and the Unlimited adds a little bit of extra money on top of that. But this Rubicon, they start around $41,500 before you add on some of the options and stuff. So it all, again, just depends on how much equipment you want. You can go onto the Jeep website and build one yourself and see how much it would run you. But I think all the off-road stuff is expensive, and so that's just, you know, part of the cost of entry with these is they aren't cheap. You can get, you know, way more luxurious vehicles for the money, way better handling vehicles for the money, but none of them can go off-road like these can. So that's really, you know, what it comes down to is how much you value that off-road ability or the character here of the Wrangler, because it definitely comes at a premium over comparable vehicles. So anyway, huge thanks to Jeep for providing me with the Wrangler here to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the Wrangler in the comments below, and whether you would get the 4-cylinder or the 6. And anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.